4 days in office, 1 day at home.
I personally prefer to work from the office.
We're still in the dual role.
A woman's job is never done.
Screen time isn't necessarily like the root of all evil.
I had my child for me and not for somebody else to take care of them.
All right, welcome back.
Working from home or not. This time we're going to be discussing views of employers versus employees and how everybody feels about remote work. We all know that it started during COVID. It became highly popular. Working from home due to the spread, and we're now 5 years in.
But big companies, they're all mandating people back in the office.
As of there's a new law now that just came out.
And I think it's absolutely right. I think that a lot of people who decide that working from home is the next best thing are not working from home. They're doing everything but working.
Yeah.
That's what I think. And there's nothing that's going to make me think otherwise. It's actually better to work 4 days in office, 1 day at home, because that 1 day you could still do those tasks and all those things that will help you have a clearer weekend, because that's what everybody's kind of going after, the work-life balance.
Yeah.
Which doesn't exist, but that's after.
It's in our next episode.
But yeah, I myself also have 4 in-office days and 1 remote day. And I'm telling you from my experience, my personal experience, that 1 day that I have away from the office, I do everything but office work.
It's true.
As both an employer and an employee, I can identify why people want their people back.
A lot of employers are saying that it has a lot to do with engagement in the office and getting their staff to engage with each other, being one of the top things to bring everybody back. I mean, I personally worked remote during COVID for a year.
Did you work?
I did.
Like work? You sat there?
I had to. Yeah. So I was working for Department of Health at the time.
Yeah, but
we were highly
monitored. A lot of people just put on their computers.
Well, I think it really depends on the work that you're doing. So dependent on if you have a certain amount of tasks to complete or things to complete that you have to show for at the end of the day. Because that way, I mean, you can't avoid doing it. If you have a job where you just have to sit next to a computer and listen to listen to calls or monitor calls and you're just putting a wiggly thing on, obviously, it's a different story. But for me personally, the experience that I had, we actually had a computer that came directly from Department of Health because it was all confidential information. We were being monitored on what we're doing on those computers. So we were only able to obviously, have log into work related sites. And we actually had team meetings every single day on Zoom where we had to turn on our cameras. So we had to be present, discuss any upcoming changes.
So I know that the work that you are involved with today, you could do from home technically. Can you not?
I can.
And?
You don't let me. I'm just kidding. I personally prefer to work from the office.
Why?
Because for me, if I feel not more focused, I feel like I have
productive.
It's not about being productive. For me, it's different. For me, I have paperwork there. I have case files there, things that I have easier access to versus if I'm remote, I have to go through the system, find it, upload it in a specific server. So it's a little bit more, I find it a little more complicated. Whereas in the office, I have a big screen where I could put a laptop. I could have several things going. It's not about being productive because I feel like both at home and there, I would still do my job, but I feel more comfortable doing my work in an office, even though I have an office at home.
Right.
It's just different.
Right.
I just feel like I'm actually at work.
So what do you suggest for the people who are quitting now? They're quitting their jobs because the employers are not letting them work from home. What side are you on?
I think I'm in the middle. I think it really depends. So I think it's beneficial, for example, for new moms, right? So you just had a baby. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we're only getting 8 weeks maternity leave. Six. Okay. Well, with C-section, it's 8. That's what I had. I had a C-section.
Natural birth, 6 weeks.
6 weeks. What is 6 weeks?
It's nothing.
It's crazy.
Yeah, but now, if you have 6 weeks, you're taking maternity leave, your husband or significant other or partner can take another 6 weeks and they call it paternal leave.
I mean, for me personally, it's not about just leaving the baby with somebody you don't know or putting them in daycare. For me, it's more so I, as a mother, want to be there with my child.
Mom guilt.
So I guess it's not about being mom guilt, but I just had this baby. I mean, I had a C-section. I had an easy recovery. I was like cleaning my house within the first week, and I hemorrhaged and almost died. But that's a different story. That's for the next podcast. But I had a very quick recovery. I was like, you know, besides the dizzy spells and the lots of blood, but I was okay. I was fine. No, but I was fine, and I was actually like 2 weeks in. I was going on walks with the stroller, like it was fine for me. But again, I wanted to be there with my child, and realistically, I think there's also like that anxiety of leaving your child, and I think mentally it's a lot to handle for a first-time parent. And another thing, I think, if you have a good employee, right, that's otherwise an amazing worker, you don't want to lose them. And you're like, well, that's it. You have 6 weeks and then you got to go back to work. And they're like, well, I'm not going to do that. I just had a baby, so I'm going to find the remote job. That's essentially kind of what I was
From an employer standpoint, you're mandated to give 6 weeks, but then the employee can file for more weeks. And I don't remember exactly how many.
Well, you can have up to 6 months unpaid.
Right.
By law.
Right.
But I mean, realistically, in today's economy, you can't be unpaid. So I think, I mean, depending on the work that you do, depending on how it could be tracked by the employer, like if you can track the work that the person is doing, why not give them?
I am terrible at follow-up, right? As an employer, I am terrible. If I give somebody a task, I expect that we're all adults. We're a professional. You do your task and we keep it moving.
Right.
So for me as an employer, but that's on me, follow-up is very, very difficult. So unless I give you like perimeters, like this is due this day and it has to be on my desk on this day, follow-up may be past the due date. So if I know you're in the office, then I can be like, oh, you know, I can reach you. But if I know that you're home and you're not picking up the phone or you're not in a Zoom call and I don't see your camera, I don't know where you are.
True. But I mean, if they're not picking up the phone, that's one thing. That's a completely different thing. But if a person is actually working and doing their job and submitting everything, you gave them a task, right?
Yes.
Okay. And this task, like, I mean, most people would follow up and let you know that it was done. Right. But then that employee shouldn't work from home. That's the point that I'm trying to make. I'm trying to say, if a person is doing their job, they're doing their job, they're responsive to you, they're putting on their camera, they're not in bed.
A lot of people are putting like half suits.
Well, but that's fine if you're at home. I mean, I do it too.
Business in the front, party in the back. But,
I do it too. If I'm working from home and I have to be on a live Zoom meeting, I'm probably in my pajamas, put the top on. But I'm still working. I want to be comfortable. For me, that's not a point. Like, if I'm just going on the camera, but I'm still doing my job.
But you are the exception to the rule. You understand this, that you're not the norm.
Well, then those people shouldn't work remote.
But they're quitting their jobs.
Well, then
they're not allowed to work remote.
So you could find people.
No, but I think it's like a whole bit. It's a vicious cycle because some people can actually be good people, and you don't want to lose them by mandating them to go back to the office. So, but now it's the law, so that you don't have any you really don't have any wiggle room. And then some people who are not quitting their job are shitty.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I know some, even like city agencies, they're doing one remote day.
I mean, remote day is great.
Yeah.
I think that the little break in the week, whether it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday, I mean, some people, yeah, but then that ends up being a long weekend.
Well, it depends what you have to do. Again, because sometimes some work you can't just like leave unfinished. Like I personally can't. I'm gonna feel like anxiety the whole weekend if I don't finish what I want to do for that week. So the next topic that we're gonna discuss is motherhood versus career. This article focuses on how society often poses rigid expectation on working mothers, pressuring them to prioritize family over career and vice versa. And this pressure can create a sense of guilt or inadequacy, forcing women into molds that may not align with their aspirations or capabilities. I don't know if it's really society forcing us, but I feel like now, being the world that we live in and the society that we live in, I think women are actually like pushed more to have a career.
Make what, 50% or so of the workforce? It's half. Right. So I don't know who's pushing.
Well, I'm not pushing. I'm just saying now it's not like, I don't know, like 40 years ago where women are like, you're supposed to be a homemaker.
Well, you know, it's so funny. I read this, you know how they have these like little excerpts from like the 50s and the 60s, like what was recommended for women. Like when you use the man's handkerchief, don't put your lipstick on it because he doesn't enjoy that. And like when he talks about different things, like look interesting, even if you're not. But like obviously the shift in what's okay, what's appropriate, what's expected has significantly changed.
Yeah. I don't think that, I mean, especially in the United States, I mean, other countries, I do speak to like family members and friends in other countries, and I think.
Are you kidding?
Different expectations, but I think that in the United States specifically, I don't think women are like, we don't necessarily have gender roles anymore. I mean, we do, but we don't. Where I feel like there's men who stay at home now and women are the breadwinners. They're like the stay-at-home dad versus the stay-at-home mom. But I think that as a woman and as a mother, you want to like balance it all.
Right. Well, sorry. Expected to. You're still expected to balance it all. I guess. The household is still on the woman.
Yeah.
Granted, a lot of men are helping out. A lot of men are doing more than even half the household. Yeah. But when like you're thinking about, you know, the role of mom or the role of housemaids.
Yeah.
Cook, cleaner, laundry doer,
homework helper,
everything. You're still, you're just, maybe you're genetically wired.
Yeah.
To just be like, well, this is what women do.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I feel like we're still in the dual role. Yeah, we're still in the dual role. And a lot of us are still juggling both roles. And I don't think that one has to supersede the other. For most. Unless you're like, I don't know, a neurosurgeon. Then the obvious thing, your career is going to supersede
lives.
Yeah. But in your typical everyday who you meet on the street, all these professional people and all the career people, I mean, I think that, you know, you play the cards you're dealt.
Yeah. It's a really like a work-life balance type of situation. I feel it does get hard to juggle it all. It gets overwhelming. This one get boring. Or tequila. For each his own.
Listen.
But yeah, I do. I mean, I guess, you know, they say like a man's job is sun to sun and a woman's job is never done.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I don't know
that. My mother-in-law always says that. A man's job is sun to sun. A woman's job is never done.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to remember that. So do you think motherhood is an obstacle for careers?
I think it depends on the type of person you are. I think it depends on how you can, like, how, not strong you are per se, but how much you could handle as a person. And I think it goes both, I guess, for men and women. But for women, I think it is a little bit more nerve-wracking because we're dealing with the tantrums, we're dealing with everything, and it's a very, like, short fuse. And then if you get out on work stress and everything like that, you know, it's a fuse that could blow a lot quicker. So, I think for some people, yes. And I think for other people, no. I think there's people who can essentially do it all. And there's people who could only do that much because that's all they're, I guess, mentally could handle. And I think that goes back to psychology and disorders and anxiety. We'll get to that paradox later.
Of course, careers, that's an individual thing. Like your husband cannot help you with your career.
Right.
But do you think that the husband can pick up some slack at home?
Yeah.
What kind of slack?
Cleaning, vacuuming, loading the dishwasher, unloading the dishwasher. I mean...
No, I hate that. my husband doesn't love the dishwasher. It's like a drunk raccoon.
Yeah. But I mean, it's hard to mess it up.
No, it's not. It is really not. I have certain OCD. Yeah. But like when he tries to load the dishwasher and I look at the dishwasher, it's like a drunk raccoon loaded this dishwasher. Plates, it's just.
But at least he tried.
And then I redo it, and then he doesn't want to do it anymore. So the word of advice: don't redo things that you want your husband to do.
Exactly, because they stop doing it. I do the same thing.
So going back to, because we discussed moms and careers and professions and doing everything at the same time, this would lead us into a good next topic of parenting styles. We all develop that. I think that we're not all defined by exactly this is how we're going to parent. We're not robots. And, if I am an authoritarian parent, then this is it. I laid out the rules my way or the highway, and that's it. Parenting career. I think we oftentimes change our parenting style. We adjust it. We kind of go into each group a little bit and we take a plus or minus. I don't think that there's one parent who's just like, you can clearly identify that this is the kind of parent they are. I also think that a lot of us change with the age we have our children, the sex of our children, and the order of our children.
The first one is
if you wanna discuss now some style, and then we can say who's who.
Okay. I don't know how the people we work with. So the first type of parenting is the authoritarian type of parenting. This is where the parent engages in one-way mode of communication, where they establish strict rules and the child is expected to follow them without question or negotiation. And the rules are very rarely explained, and the children are expected to meet high standards without making mistakes. Then research does find that children that are raised by authoritarian parents often exhibit well-behaved killers. That's true. Often exhibit well-behaved behavior due to the consequences of misbehavior. Additionally, they tend to follow precise instructions more effectively to achieve their goals. I think those people that need the deadlines pushed on them are the product of that. But it does say
eventually grow up to be adults.
Yeah. And so it does also say that this parenting style can lead to higher levels of aggression, while children may exhibit shyness, social inaptitude, and difficulty making their own decisions.
Yes. Because you have no explanations to these children. It's just my way or the highway. And, you better like it, or if you don't like it, too bad.
Yeah.
I think children need explanations. I think children are little tiny people who...
Yeah.
The more you communicate, the more they'll communicate back. And they want to know. Even if they're doing the wrong thing, they want to know that it's the wrong thing.
Right.
You could still tell them it's the wrong thing. You could still do the whole reward punishment thing, but you have to explain to them why it's the wrong thing. You just say, because I said so.
The next type of parenting that we have is the authoritative parenting, which is characterized by a close, nurturing relationship between parents and children. Parents set clear expectations and guidelines and explain the reasoning behind their disciplinary actions. And they use the disciplinary methods as a supportive tool rather than as punishment. And the authoritative parenting fosters confidence, responsibility, and self-regulation in children. And these children manage negative emotions more effectively, leading to improved social outcomes and emotional well-being.
Should all be those kind of parents.
I try to be.
Oh, yeah?
I do try to be more, explaining everything and to have a close bond.
But do you think that's because A, he's an only child, B, because, he has special needs?
Yes.
C,
I don't think so, because I don't think special needs has a lot to do with it, because it was like that ever since he was a baby before we actually knew. So I was and again, that's kind of like me going to do everything with him being very involved in his day to day and hour to hour helicopter parenting. And kind of like, and then later on communicating with his therapist, following through what they're doing, and kind of like, I know best what I need to do for my child. And, I think like I started authoritarian. I could see myself sometimes as authoritarian when it's like, again, we're going through the same thing. It's like, I already told you that this is what you have to do, and he knows. So it's like, why are we wasting time? You finished eating, put your plate in the sink. That's just what you do. That's it.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, while you still identify as one, like your
Yeah.
core is probably one, you still have a little bit of everything.
Yeah, yeah. And the next type of parenting style is the permissive parenting, which is typically warm and nurturing, often holding minimal expectations for their children. They impose few rules and maintain open communication, allowing their children to navigate situations independently. And the lack of expectations usually leads to infrequent disciplinary actions, as permissive parents often take on a more fun-like role than that of a traditional authority figure.
Fail.
And
I just run in my eyes. I see like a big fail.
Yes.
The style is failing.
The limited rules can lead children to develop unhealthy eating habits, particularly regarding snacks, increasing the risk of obesity and other health issues later in life. These children enjoy considerable freedom, making decisions about their bedtime, homework, and screen time on computers and television.
Excellent. 5-year-old tyrants just running around.
Yes. And such extensive freedom can foster negative habits, as parents often provide little guidance on moderation.
It's terrible. I think it's a terrible way to parent.
I have a name for this style of parenting. It's the gentle parenting approach.
Would you say that this is gentle?
I think this is gentle parenting. I think this is gentle parenting because gentle parenting is more or less, or crunchy as they call it. No, there's such a thing as crunchy parenting, where you let the child kind of like explore everything and the word no is just non-existent. And instead of saying no, you start giving options of other things to do.
Eventually you run out of options.
You do. And then the child controls you.
Right. So
And
it's like, who's parenting?
right, exactly.
So that's why, to me, that's like a fail.
Yeah,
It's a fail. It's a fail. What kind of rules, eventually rules turn into laws,
Right.
actually.
Yeah.
Like, your rules of the house will eventually turn to laws of society.
Yeah.
So, what kind of, how are these children, what tools are they given to follow the rules, to follow the laws, to be self-aware,
Yeah.
to be aware of others, to have, I don't know, empathy, anything.
Yeah.
What I'm just don't understand. Like, it's just, you plant a seed and you just watch the flower grow. You give it some food and then you give it some water and that's it.
Yeah.
If you don't prune the tree or the flower,
Yeah.
right? However it grows, it just grows.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like that's plants.
Yeah.
That's like weeds. And like, you don't like it, you rip it out, you throw it
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
and that's it. What do you do with, it's like a whole generation of these people who are walking around, and the rules don't apply to them. And, the norms don't apply to them and nothing applies to them.
I think also the style might be related to guilt, like parental guilt, mom guilt. So in some cases, I think so, because if you feel guilty about not being
But
there,
they're home. A lot of these people are home. The ones who do engage in gentle parenting, I've noticed that a lot of them are home.
like work from home.
Yes, either work from home or stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads, or
Yeah.
I none of these people that I have met, I can't say none, that I have come across that do promote the gentle parenting, they're not career driven.
Yeah.
They're not professionals. They're not they probably read a lot of articles on gentle parenting and books on gentle parenting and self-help, whatever. But they're not out there. So
Yeah.
what kind of guilt?
I feel like I tried a little bit of gentle parenting, and that was because I had guilt when I found out that my son had autism.
Right.
That's when I felt like, oh my God, like he doesn't understand. And that was very short-lived, because then I realized,
why was that
because he actually does understand. And he did understand, and he became, and honestly, it made him so manipulative to people that don't know how to move around. And I don't know if it has to do with his zodiac sign. He's a Gemini, but man, but he is manipulative, and he knows how to people, like certain people, he knows how to get his way with those particular people. With me, it's different. Like, he listens to me more because like, I feel like I do have that authoritarian style sometimes, where I'm like, no, like, you have to do it this way. Like, I do try to explain, like, you know, all the steps, but I feel like that's when I kind of, like, because of that guilt that I had, I tried it, and again, very short-lived. I didn't feel like it worked for my child. Maybe there's kids that it works for, but I don't know. I
don't know. I see lots of different children and lots of different parents of families, and I can pinpoint where there are parents who are using, you know, who are talking to their children and explaining things to their children, and are teaching their children right from wrong, and teaching their children that rules exist, and other people exist, and we're not only responsible for ourselves but for other people. And then I see children who are coming from homes where me. Who are you? Me.
yeah.
And it's non-stop, and it's a problem for everybody else in that little classroom of those little people, because they are their own society, and it becomes an issue, and then it becomes an issue for the parents, because they're possibly being called into the office and saying, you know, your child, but the parents don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. They want to blame, well, no, it's because you didn't look, and the teacher didn't do this, and this, and this, and it's constant blame. And it's, nobody's ever taking responsibility and just looking at the fact that you didn't parent.
Right. There is another type of parenting, and this is the uninvolved parenting style, which grants children a high degree of freedom, as these parents typically take a hands-off approach. While they may fulfill their child's basic needs, they remain emotionally detached and disengaged from their child's life. And uninvolved parents do not adhere to specific disciplinary style and maintain limited communication with their children, providing minimal nurturing and having few, if any, expectations. And these children typically demonstrate resilience and may be more self-sufficient than those raised in other parenting styles.
They have to fend for themselves. They're like wild wolves.
However,
wolves.
These
sack of wolves.
However, these skills are typically developed out of necessity. Additionally, they may struggle with emotional regulation, exhibit less effective coping strategies, face academic challenges, and have difficulty maintaining or nurturing social relationships.
I think nobody cares about them.
Serial killers.
No, the first ones are serial killers. Although, now that we're to the end, I am more of an authoritarian parent than anything else.
Really?
Yep. With all my, whatever, but I am.
So you're raising serial killers, essentially. 3 little ones.
3 little serial killers. No, but I am. I do try to explain to my kids why this needs to be done, but it needs to be done the way I said it needs to be done. I don't punish. That's why I'm not a true authoritarian, because I don't really punish the kids.
Yeah.
I don't take things away from the kids. I'm talking just me. I don't yell at the kids unless they drive me to insanity. Then yes, obviously, like if I said it 10 times, the heck gets very. But I do expect there to be rules, and I expect rules to be followed. And if they're not followed, I create some sort of a environment where you will understand that this happened because the rules were not followed.
Right. To have a consequence.
Yes. But I also I have like different consequences. It's not a one fit all.
Yeah.
So, it's crime and punishment.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. So if you committed one sort of crime, you get one sort of punishment. You commit another one, then it's another one. But it also, my punishments don't last very long because then I feel bad and I have to talk.
Yeah.
And I have to explain and I have to tell them like, don't worry, just don't do it again. Just don't do it again.
Yeah. I do sometimes, I punish sometimes. Not like punish, but I'll be like, take a time out. Especially this is like when a tantrum is happening because you don't get your way. Time out. Then I talk it through and I'm like, do you understand? And he's like, I'm like, okay, now you can go back to playing.
So I will walk away myself.
Yeah.
Rather than punish. If it gets to the point where I'm just like, I can't, like, I'm not processing it anymore and I don't see how this can effectively resolve, I will walk away. I will come back and I will talk.
Yeah.
And I will explain the rules again. But at some point I'll be like, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm done. This is what you need to do.
Yeah.
And that's it. So, definitely not the last two. Those. Yeah, and that were not for me and my household, but the first two, I'm a mix.
Yeah.
Because I'm completely, this whole gentle parenting, it's completely not for me. Whether I'm a different generation, then,
no, I think anything is possible.
I don't know. My parents, I didn't get gentle parented.
Same.
I don't expect my children to gentle parent their children, although who knows?
Yeah.
They're going to be like,
Hopefully not.
with an authoritarian mother. I don't know. But I'm not a true authoritarian.
Yeah.
So we went through this and we're going to close this topic. Nutrition and brain development.
So we all know that brain development is the most sensitive and to a baby's nutrition between mid-gestation and 2 years of age. And inadequate brain growth explains why children who are malnourished as fetuses and infants suffer lasting behavioral cognitive deficits, including slower language, fine motor development, lower IQ, and poorer school performance.
Research in this article, I remember I read that the babies need fat.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of fat.
Yes.
What about those babies who are, I don't know, put on a vegan diet?
Sure. I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat meat. And I actually had a baby. I had a baby.
You're not the baby.
Right, but it's saying during gestation.
You didn't have this. Right, but you didn't have,
It's saying from gestation to 2 years of age.
So you were a vegetarian when you were pregnant?
Yes.
Oh.
I never really liked meat. And then but also I feel like once I moved out of my parents' house, I stopped, like, if I didn't want to eat the meat, like, I didn't eat it.
What this doesn't specify what kind of fat.
Right.
Because avocado is fat.
But right.
It's a
So
plant.
you can have oils also. There's oils, there's cheeses, like I love cheese. There's fried food, has fats in it, saturated.
But those aren't good fat.
Right.
What this article is talking about is good fats, the ones that are supposed to coat your brain and give your brain nutrition.
Well, that's what in milk, like in breast milk,
Right.
you have fat.
Yeah. But not everybody breastfeeds.
I didn't breastfeed.
Neither.
I tried. That was like my goal. I didn't even have formula in the house, to be quite honest with you. I went to the hospital, whatever, almost died. But, and then my milk didn't come in until a week later. Like, I had no milk. They were trying to, like, pump. And then I was, like, constantly pumping and pumping.
Hey,
and pumping.
they put you on a fat diet when you
In the hospital?
No. After.
No.
We told you to eat a lot of fat?
No, I had to get my iron levels back up because my iron was really, really low. I lost, like, 2 liters of blood due to my hemorrhage. And I didn't do a transfusion. So I was, like, on iron. So I had to eat a lot of, like, leafy greens and all of that. But he was on formula. I did the European formula, the Holly free.
Right.
So that's what he was on, and it does have fats in it. So I don't know, I didn't feel like super guilty about not breastfeeding. That was it, and he wasn't watching, so that was another reason why I was like,
Right.
I gave up. After a month of pumping an ounce a day, I said I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, no, I didn't do any of that. Just fed the formula right away.
Yeah, we didn't.
Yeah, but then I transitioned them to food quite early.
Yeah,
around 5 months.
yeah,
I started giving them table food.
yeah.
A little bit. And then by like a year, they were just eating
Yeah.
full like meals.
I also did like purees in the beginning, and then I think ties into nutrition because research had come out in 2019 of high levels of lead and heavy metals in baby food. And so I said, like, I'm not going to do this. I wasn't working. I was a stay-at-home mom and I needed to find my purpose. So I was actually like, I was buying everything. I bought this food like pouching system. So I was like blending and boiling and steaming everything and then making my own pouches.
Yeah. But it's easy. I don't know. It's easy. The steamers now, there's like a steamer.
Yeah.
And
that.
Yeah, it just steams a blend at the same time.
So I had the baby move and I was trying to like steam in it, but it wasn't steaming. So I just got the steam basket and just did it that way. I felt like I was able to get more food in there. And then I was like blending it myself. And then the pouching system was very convenient. I would just pop it into pouches or freeze it. And, yeah, it was pretty decent. And I think it does help, but I think, doing the home cooked.
Everything, I think, like, just until the age of 2, everything that you're doing, it all has to be related to brain development, because that's really when the brain is developing all its neurons, all its synapses, everything. And it's just so important for long-term brain development, those initial, what you're putting in to the brain right away. Because once that, it's like a little portal. So once the little portal closes, that's it. Like, you can't do anything. You just can't. It's just impossible to go back in time and fix it. If your child is not speaking, you can do things.
Yeah.
There are developmental things that you can do. If your child's like walking poorly, you get it. But if your child's brain development is not getting what it needs to develop, the nutrients that it needs and the vitamins that it needs, there's no fixing that. So it's so important that first 2 years of life to just focus on really what is going into your child.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think pediatricians should really push that annual blood work for kids, because that's where you find things that could be potentially missing that you can supplement with. Like, most of us have low vitamin D, and that's really essential to brain development. I think especially in children, unless you're outside like all day, every day in the sun. But even then, like there's different links where there's certain genes that we're missing with the absorption of vitamin D and like all vitamins. So I think that's essential as well. And besides that, it could take us to our next topic of screen time. Which you were going to lace. Because nutrition is not the only thing that leads to regression in development in children.
This particular article that we went through, this one was great. The screen time at the speech delays, because this, on the first podcast, this was my really big topic, the screen time. So I was really happy that we got to read this article and go through this, and we come back to now that not only is screen time bad for development, we're gonna deep dive into what kind of development. Starting with speech delay.
So there's been a recent study that was posted by the Journal of the American Medical Association Pediatrics Physician that reported that more screen time in 1-year-old children was associated with developmental delays in communication and problem solving at ages 2 through 4. And those delays were specifically found in fine motor skills and personal and social skills. It also correlated with communication delays. It shows that there's basically a dose response in delays, meaning that the more a toddler was exposed to screen time, the more likely they were to have a developmental delay.
So what I liked about this article the most is the fact that it talks about that we grew up on shows. But the shows that we grew up, Sesame Street, and there was another show that they mentioned here. Those were all educational shows. What the children are watching today are not educational shows. The screen time that we are giving to our children today, it's not the educational, developmentally appropriate show that, PBS would put out on Saturdays.
Right.
So it's important to distinguish between the kind of screen time.
Yeah.
Like I said before, screen time isn't necessarily like the root of all evil. I'm not saying that at all, because we use screen time in the classrooms when we're doing lessons. We're using screen time at home if, like, we're giving the children a little break from whatever activities that they're engaged in. But it's just to choose the screen time wisely and not to do, hours of screen time.
Yeah.
And the other thing I liked about this article is that it actually says that do not have any screen time before 18 months, which is like a big thing.
Yeah.
Really big thing, because I think that's the time when children are really, really developing their gross motor skills, because that's when they're starting to crawl and walk.
Yeah.
They're developing their fine motor skills, because that's when they're grabbing things. They're starting to self-feed.
Yeah.
They're starting to use manipulatives, putting, little pegs together and doing all sorts of those things. And that's really when language comes out.
Yeah.
During that time, like between the, 1 year old and 2 years old, that's when language comes out. So if you can postpone exposing them to the screen time until they're 18 months, you can really, really, really tell where they're lacking in their development.
Right. And I think it was a different thing that I read. It was like a research done on the screen time that we have now. And with Sesame Street, it's more of a slow pace, less bright colors.
Yeah.
It's more like where you're able to follow along. And the shows that are being released now for children specifically are very colorful, very fast paced, where the frame is switching like every second. You're seeing something new, something new, something new. And it's a lot for their brain to process all of it. And so
that's what I said last time. That's what I said last time. We're just we're not even exposing to quality screen time. We're not giving them a good educational show. We're not giving them, I remember Baby Mozart. It's gone now, but when my son was born,
they have it on YouTube.
But they had like CDs.
Yeah.
I'm gonna really date myself. But they had like CDs, and I remember that, like, I would put on, when he was a baby, I would put on the Baby Mozart before bedtime. Like, after I would bathe him, I would give him his bottle, and then I would put on this Baby Mozart. He was in that TV like the world stopped insisting, and he was small. He was like 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, because of the bright colors. It wasn't the music.
Yeah.
We were all like, oh my God, he's listening to Mozart.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not because of the music. It is because of those high blast colors.
Yeah.
And the constant change of the screen.
Yeah.
It was like, first it was like some blasts, and then it was like some dots, and then it was something dropping from the scene, and it was all set to music, and it was just like, oh wow, this is so cool.
Yeah.
But it was really not so cool.
Yeah.
Because it didn't allow for the brain to process the information. I don't think it was even processing the music.
Yeah. I definitely seen a change. Like, I took away screen time completely. Very rarely we'll put on like Lion King, the original, because that's my favorite movie too. And the amount of times he's watched Lion King, and he watches it like it's new every single time, it's crazy. But I've noticed a difference in my child specifically when he was getting, let's say, a couple of hours of screen time versus to no screen time. It's a tantrums are decreased. It's like a different child, and he's more like eye contact, like just in general more present versus just like sitting there and nobody else exists. Right. And it's like that, and he's 5, and still to this day, like if I put on a show that he likes to watch or like a preferred show, nobody else exists, just the show. And like you'll ask him something, everything is yes, just for you to leave him alone. So I do think that especially for children who are developmentally delayed, I think like if you can just cut it out, and it's hard because then you have to find activities that you have to supplement with, because now you have to watch your child and not the TV and babysitting, which is, and I get it, people need a break, and you need a mental break. So you're like, okay, what do I do? Put on the TV, especially for like younger children, because at 5 they're like kind of more or less self-sufficient. They'll find something to do.
Right.
But so I do get it, and I get like people have a long day at work. They're like, they come home, they're like, here's the iPad. But there's another thing now. There's like these subliminal messages that they're putting into kids' YouTube shows, where kids are then coming to their parents saying these crazy things.
Yes. Or they saw something.
And they saw, and there was like, I think it was like 2 years ago where there was like this, it would be a kid's
The killer bear?
No, it wasn't a killer bear. It was like this weird character. It almost looked like from The Ring, the girl that comes out.
Oh, yeah.
It was like creepy looking. Yeah, to kill yourself. Yeah, and that's crazy because like, and we can't really censor YouTube because like you put it on the kids' channel and they bypass.
We are going to be on YouTube.
Yes. So they can watch us. But and it's crazy. And that's why I was like, you know why? My son doesn't even know how to use the iPad. He doesn't know how to use a cell phone. I have a Dave and Ava app on my phone that sings songs. That's what he gets if we're out in a restaurant. And
so that's what my child is watching. She's watching Nursery Rhymes, which are, however minutes long, but it's one song where Nursery Rhymes, the wheels on the bus.
Yeah.
And it's all very long.
Yeah.
And it's not blasting with colors and ring images or whatever. There's a bus, there's animals on the bus, and somebody's singing in the background about the bus and the wheels, and it's counting. And those are the only things that I put on. I put on no YouTube for her as far as reels and these fast-paced moving images. And I don't really put cartoons on because she's too small. My other child, so we noticed a huge difference when we put a parent lock on her phone from the times that how she's doing in school.
Yeah.
If her phone is open and she has all the access in the world to TikTok, YouTube, and all this stuff, she's on the phone. Like we checked her time. It was something like 10 hours.
Yeah.
Like she didn't sleep, she didn't eat, she didn't go to the bathroom, she didn't do anything. She just stayed on her phone for 10 hours. But when we put on the parental lock, then it's like whatever. She gets her hour a day and she's done, and then she's bored. She's got nothing to do. So she's reading or she's doing math or she's talking to her friends. We just, even when there's no parental lock on her phone, we don't see her.
Right.
It's like, come to dinner. I'm not hungry. Time for bed. I'm not sleepy.
Yeah.
It's constant. Just anything to get out of the routine and to get out of doing something just to go back to TikTok. Moving along.
And that brings us to unstructured play, which is more important for children than screen time.
Yes, absolutely. And this is what I spoke about last time. Actually, it was in this article. That if you allow your children to just be bored and not entertained, that they will find something to do because it's just naturally innate.
And I think they also start figuring toys out of how they work and what to specifically do with them when instead of just watching the unboxing, they have the opportunity to play with the toy. They open the toy, they play with it, and then they kind of figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
And you may not necessarily have to even show them. So I got my son this Tony's box recently. This is a new big hit. It's a box. It's like a little square box that's surrounded by soft stuff that they can throw and it will not break. So it charges and then it comes off the dock. And it has different figurines that go on top from different story characters. They literally have everything. There's thousands of them. And each toy that you put on top will either play different songs. It could be songs from movies, like they have the Lion King one. And some of them tell stories. So I have, my son loves the Lion King. So it sings the first Lion King song. Then it does Hakuna Matata and something else. And then it goes into the story. And then each time you have to remove the toy and then put a new toy. So I was trying to show my son how to do it. He was just not having it. And then he figured out that you have to put the toys on top and they have to stay on top and it magnetizes on top of it. And then he gets to hear the music song. So then he developed his favorite ones. We actually have this other thing.
Just audio?
It's just audio.
I love it.
Well, yeah. Cool. Tony's box. And then you buy the individual Tonys. They sell them everywhere. Target, Amazon. Amazon had a sale recently. You buy 6, you get one for free.
Really cool. So this is like a little interactive radio.
Yeah, basically, like, well, you don't talk back to it.
Right.
But
You don't talk back to the radio.
right. So it's like, and in a sense, it's a radio. And you know what's great about it? You hook it up to Wi-Fi the first time, and you could take it with you everywhere. So you could take it in the car, because it charges for like up to 8 hour charge. Yeah, I got it for Christmas. It was one of our Christmas. I also tried the Miko robot, which is like new robot that learns from you, and you could talk to it.
Like AI.
Yeah, it's kind of like AI for children. I mean, it was cool. You tell like to dance, it'll dance around. Ask it to tell you a story, it does.
Do you remember Mickey Mouse?
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse dance?
No.
He would just dance around, and like you would tell him to dance.
Oh,
like he would dance.
Yeah.
And he had these like rollerblades on the bottom.
Oh, I didn't have.
Oh my god.
I had a Furby.
The best. No, Furby came later. But like it was like the best toy ever.
Yeah.
He would speak, and you would tell him things, and he would like get your prompts, and he would dance. You'd be like, Mickey, dance.
Yeah.
It was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
I'm really like this whole time I'm really dating myself. I have to stop. Really got to stop. People are gonna figure out how old I am. Moving right along into our hot topic of anxiety in children and teens. Anxiety in children exists, and it's very real, and it's a big topic to cover. And then there's, the other school of thought, anxiety doesn't exist, and we don't really need to talk about it because anxiety is really for adults. I mean, how can children have anxiety? What are they anxious about?
Yeah.
This particular article, I think it covered well what is anxiety and what is just normal childhood fear. So, being afraid of the dark, normal childhood fear.
Right.
Thinking that the boogie monster is under your bed or you have monsters in the closet, normal childhood fear. Now, if you're thinking that the boogie monster is just traveling along with you,
yes,
and you don't want to go outside now, now we're getting into anxiety.
Right.
How much attention are we paying attention to distinguish between normal childhood fear and anxiety?
It depends which school of thought you belong to. Because I think it's real. I think a lot of it has to do with post-traumatic stress. Something could happen to a child, right? And again, we could talk about there's kids who are being abused, right? So it's a real fear, and then it does turn into anxiety. So there's kids who you can just raise your voice and they back away from you because they experience something, and that does turn into anxiety in a sense of like a post-traumatic stress. And of course it would happen in children. If we're all human beings, if it happens to adults, it would happen to a child. I mean, I think if it starts affecting your quality of life and the child's quality of life, then this is where you have to pay attention to. Being scared, mommy, come in the room. There's someone under my bed. There was actually a story recently came out. A child said there's a boogie monster under my bed, and there was a man hiding. No, under the bed. Yes, this is like I saw that like maybe a week ago. It was when I had the flu. I didn't imagine it. Really? No, there was a man under his bed hiding.
Just came in from
I must have was waiting for the family to go to sleep. I didn't read the full article. It was like a snippet and so on an Instagram reel.
Was it like Onion News?
No. It was real. It was a real thing. There was like a whole article. I just didn't get to read it. But
I said, wow.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
No.
It's crazy.
No.
I would
lose my...
That will cause you to have anxiety for the rest of your life because
adult anxiety.
Yeah.
Forget anything else. I mean, yeah. That's serious. But I think a lot of times children's anxiety doesn't always come from stress and doesn't always come from post-traumatic stress or abuse. I think sometimes it comes from just when their fear isn't necessarily addressed.
Yeah.
And it grows into anxiety, because that does exist. I think that when they're telling you, and they have various cues, they don't verbally tell you, but there are cues from children that you get when they're telling you, this is not, like, I'm not comfortable. Like, my body's not comfortable, my mind's not comfortable, and something's going on. They're too small to really tell you this. But if you're watching them and you're watching them, you really can assess whether it's something that needs more help than just telling them, there's nothing there. Forget about it.
Right.
Go to sleep. Stop crying.
Yeah.
stop whining. Just leave me alone. You know, because eventually, yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's nothing.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is something, and you just don't want to miss that little window when it is something, because then, you know, we're going to get into the whole, like, oh, I have to take medicine for this, for that, for everything else. And that's all the topic.
Yeah.
But also the other school of thought is that now everybody's walking around screaming anxiety. I'm anxious about this and I'm anxious about that. But it's like little children, you know? Like,
Yeah.
You just have to figure out what is really anxiety and what really is just a childhood growing pain.
Yeah.
Of sorts.
Well, they do suggest here to set aside like worry time for the day. You have to discuss with your child for 10 to 15 minutes a day what worries you today, and then kind of like address that and talk through with them to prevent it from growing into a bigger thing than it is.
And on that note, we're going to get into our Netflix show.
Yes.
I've been waiting to get into this show because I watched this show, and this show tied in all the things that are just really, really, really
that we discussed today
in the media, but also in the media. Also, like, a lot of things are going on in the media, and all of a sudden we have, you know, children who are bullying other children, and children who are committing suicide because other children told them to. And we have all this going on, and it's coming from somewhere.
Yes.
So
the show that we're going to discuss is Adolescence, that went out on Netflix about a week and a half ago. I believe it was last weekend, the weekend before last, it came out.
Or, I don't know. But
I feel like I started watching it the weekend before last, but then I got sick, and I was just literally, I can't pay attention, because you really do need to pay attention. And I think that does tie in the influence of screen time, social media, anxiety in children, bullying, and all that kind of like ties in together. And it was a good watch.
But also the parents.
The parenting styles.
The parenting style.
There's
a reason he didn't want mom. He didn't want mom as his designated adult.
Yeah.
Because it was his dad who gave him a free pass all the time.
Yeah.
It was dad who blindly believed him over everything and anything. And we didn't understand that until the very end. Although we should have understood this, because the detective also has the same parenting style.
Yeah.
If the scene opens up with him
and the phone with his son, yeah.
And the son. So he too had the same parenting style.
Yeah.
Which I was like, now I can connect all these dots.
Yeah.
But and this thing that they were talking about in the show, it's actually it's a real thing. Mm-hmm. The emojis with the hearts and all this stuff. It's a thing, and it's in our schools. And yeah, I didn't know about it until I watched the show.
Yeah.
And asked my son, I said, is this a thing? He's like, yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Cause like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all these hearts have all these like meanings.
It's like a code, so your parents don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. I feel like there was like something like that when I was growing up. I just, honestly, I don't remember at this point. It was so long ago. But in AOL, there were also like certain things that you could send that meant different things. And that was kind of like certain, or songs that you were putting the lyrics of the songs to indicate like what's going on in your life.
Right.
But I do think that amount of social media that we have, the different social media platforms we have, is driving for bullying to go up. Because a lot of, I wouldn't say statistically, but a lot of the stories I heard about where kids are committing suicide, it is directly linked to being bullied on social media.
This wasn't even suicide.
Right.
And also, this was like kind of a two-way bullying.
Yeah.
Because she was also not without fault.
Right.
But, I mean, granted, the thing that happened to her should never have happened.
Right.
But she was also bullying him.
Right.
And he was kind of not speaking to anyone about it, and he's taking it into his own hands. But also, when he was saying I didn't do it, I really believed him.
Yeah.
I believed him, and I think he believed him.
Yeah.
I think he believed himself that he didn't do it. I think that he had some sort of block. I think it wasn't until the end, until that phone call, when he realized what he did.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, I obviously knew he did something when they showed the video from this
Obvious
camera.
But also they don't show his face. So you're still holding on to hope that maybe it's someone else's sweater or someone else's sneakers or something.
I knew that he did it. I had a feeling that he did it from the beginning because he peed himself. Yes, there were signs. He peed himself when it happened.
Yes, he did. But
fear.
It's also fear.
Yeah, but I don't know. There's like a lot. I do watch a lot of serial killer murder.
Okay.
That's like my thing. The whole behaviors and how people react to certain situations. And when it is a traumatic event for him, and it does in children and even in adults, when something happens of that caliber, they like mask it. Like they close it off in their brain.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I don't think he even past the peeing of himself. And when he went when he was saying, I didn't do it, I really think part of him really believed he didn't do it. Because he even asked her, if you remember that scene with the psychiatrist in the holding cell, he said something like, oh, the psychiatrist had to tell him that, no, she's not alive. I think maybe he thought that, like, he hurt her.
Right.
Like, badly.
Well, yeah, I don't think he came to terms with the fact that he killed her.
Right.
I mean, he's an 11-year-old child.
Right, exactly.
And the brain is not fully developed at that point. But he did also tell her, don't tell anybody what I did.
Yeah.
Which is when, like, also he.
But then he wanted to be a good thing. But then he also wanted for her to like him because he kept asking, "Do you think I'm?"
And that, I think that has to do a lot with the bullying that he was getting. He wants to be well liked,
or with this subculture that he was a part of, with the emojis and all that. Yeah. Because if you read up on it, it's the whole like, we don't need the women and
like, the whole the Tate.
Yeah.
I forgot his.
That is, everything in life happens because of the women, and because we get rejected by women, and you have to show that we don't need these women. So I think, like, for him, it was so important for the psychiatrist, who was a woman, to like him.
Yeah.
And he kept wanting to, even though he was 11, but she's a woman. And he kept asking for, well, do you like me?
Mm.
Well, do you like me?
Yeah.
I mean, it was a difficult show. It left an impression.
I watched a lot of similar. I think for me, the hardest thing to watch was the dad's reaction when dad came to realization.
Yeah.
At the very end, when he walked into his room.
Yeah.
And we started looking around. Yeah. And he said, I should have done better and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was for me, was the hardest thing to watch because I came to terms with what he did. I mean, I watched so much of that. Like, to me, murder is nothing. Like, let's be real. Wow. This is what I want. Okay. On a Friday night.
Don't get into a fight with Katie.
No, I'm not going to kill you. But I do like to watch shows about serial killers, murder, how to catch, all of that. Like, even when there was a show where they did interviews with serial killers and the whole, like, it's interesting to me.
Right. I get it. I get the whole thing. But also, he's 11.
I know.
That was my whole thing, is that he's 11. So the first 2 episodes I watched by myself. Then the second 2 episodes I watched with my son, who's 17 years old. And after the show, my son just sat there staring at me. And he doesn't watch these kind of shows.
Yeah.
So he just sat there staring at me. And I'm like, what'd you think? And he goes, did you want him to be innocent? I'm like, yeah. He goes, me too. I really was hoping he would be innocent.
Yeah.
Because, like, he's such a cute kid.
Yeah.
And he's just playing he's kind of playing double sides, because you do see him go off the handle and you do see him get aggressive, but at the same time he's a kid. Yeah. And the way he talks to his dad and the way he talks to the police, it's just like, is there a chance, is there a small chance that he is innocent?
Yeah.
So it was a really good show. But you know what it really did remind me of? I don't know if you read the book Defending Jacob.
No. I watched so many shows that it's like...
So it was very similar. It was very, very similar. But Defending Jacob, I read, actually, before I watched the show. The book was better than the show.
Always.
Right. I remember that when I finished Defending Jacob, I was just like sat there for a very long time trying to process what exactly just happened.
Yeah.
So, because it was like one of the first books I read like that. And it was just like, so real and it could happen. And I already had my son and I was just like, really gotta watch out.
Yeah.
Really have to pick up these signs. They're so thin.
Yeah.
It's so small.
There was recently also a show about, well, talking about killer kids. There was a show called Under the Bridge on Hulu. And it was like a series. They were releasing it every week. It was about a group of friends who bullied this girl. She ends up running away from home to fit in with these kids who lived in like a home for girls. And then in the end, they were like bullying her, and they ended up killing her. And then the cop was like investigating, like, why did you do it? And they were aware that they did it. And they took her boots to keep in there. And one of the girls kept it in her closet as a reminder of what she had done.
That's sick. That's sick.
And so
that's like another level of psychopath.
And it was actually based on a true story.
Oh, really?
Yes. What had actually happened.
Really?
Yep. I watch a lot of like based on true story. Because I mean, and it's true. And it's like, if you look at like, obviously psychology of people, not just children, you have your neighbor. You don't even know who they are.
Oh, I don't know who my neighbor is.
Well, like, so there's, you hear these stories like the serial killers, they're the most normal people that you wouldn't suspect for the most part. There's people who have families. There's people who have, children who are teachers, jobs, and you don't even know who you work with sometimes. That's why those psychology tests are so important.
It's true. There are people who walk among us who aren't okay.
Yeah.
And it's not our job to make them okay.
Right.
And it's not our job to make sure that they're okay. This is not our job. But
it is our job as parents.
It is our job as
to catch these things, to prevent them.
And on that note, I have a very interesting type of material. I was just watching reels. I'll be honest. I was watching reels and this reel came up where they called it the paradox. Mm-hmm. And they spoke about various people in psychology, in child development, in real pioneers in education, and these are real people who didn't always practice what they preached. Mm. And I found these people to be so fascinating. And, because their alignment with themselves and what they produce to society and the world is so different. But yet we consider them the founding fathers of, psychology or of education or of child development. So let me just give you some names. So I have Sigmund Freud, psychoanalysis. He wrote extensively on the unconscious mind and family dynamics and the importance of understanding childhood. I mean, he's just one of these people who really, really tries to label the stages of childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. And yet, he had a very rigid relationship with his own daughter, and he discouraged her from getting married. And he discouraged her from sexually evolving. Then we have Jean-Jacques Rousseau, philosophy and education. He was highly influential on child rearing and addition. As you have it, he abandoned all his 5 children into orphanages. How do you make groundbreaking studies and writings and all this stuff on child rearing, like growing up children to, you have 5 children, just give them off to an orphanage.
Yeah.
Then you have Charles Dickens, who was very big on social reform and family, wrote passionately about poverty and child labor and the importance of compassion, and yet treated his wife poorly, constant scandal. He was estranged from his 10 children, okay, and maintained many, 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 many extramarital affairs.
With younger women.
Yes. While all, talking about family and social reform.
Yeah.
Then our next paradox is T.S. Eliot, who spoke about religion, morality, and love. and who wrote about moral and spiritual poetry. Now, his problem was he institutionalized his first wife and never visited her. How about that for love? Huh? And many of his personal relationships were cold and distant. How about that for, morality,
Love and religion.
and religion? And then we get to everybody's favorite. If I say this name, everybody will be like, yes, of course.
Yeah,
I mean,
the best method.
She's a popular woman. And yet, we have Maria Montessori, who is child development and education. She advocated for children, child-centered education, hands-on learning, independent, respect for all children, and yet gave up her own child to avoid scandal because she had him out of wedlock. So she never raised her own child. Huh? And there's the paradox. And then we have Victor Hugo, who speaks about justice, freedom, and love, advocating for redemption and justice and arguing for people can change. Mm-hmm. He was controlling to his own children, he was also estranged from them, and carried on a lot of affairs. He needed all that for the writing of the love and the justice on.
Yeah.
And this one is one of my favorites. B.F. Skinner, who's literally we know as the father of behaviorism. Everything that we are learning about in psychology, in genetics, and various things come from Skinner.
Yeah.
And he emphasizes reinforcement, scheduling can become foundation for education, animal training, even in addiction. And he used the Skinner box on his own daughter. So how about that for our paradox box? So I will keep this going because this was just fascinating to me because we are so involved in social norms. Mm. And we're so, we hear these big names and we're like, yes, well, if he said so and she read this and he read that, they developed this and that, and that's the way to go. But there's a whole huge paradox. So I think I'm going to keep on digging for more.
Yeah.
That's all I have for today.
That's all, folks.
Until next time, please subscribe, post questions that you'd like us to cover in our next podcast. Until next time,